I haven't sat down to film a Get Ready With Me in so long, and I got a crazy story time for you. So today it's gonna be more old school YouTube vibes, minimal editing, no graphics, no B-roll or anything like that, just sitting down and talking about life. I'm gonna leave everything linked in the description box below. I'm not gonna be talking through the products as I go, and for the first time, I'm actually gonna start with my skincare. So if you're new here and you don't know my story, I am a donor-conceived child, meaning that my parents used a sperm donor to conceive because they couldn't have children. The average couple really doesn't have to worry about it. They had apparently a super rare situation where they ended up being chemically allergic to each other. I've never heard of that happening to anyone else, so I really don't think it's something you need to be concerned about. Anytime I tell that story, people are like, oh my God, is this something that I need to think of? And it's really not. So, don't freak out about that. But my parents could not conceive. They tried for 5 years. And eventually, when they used a sperm donor, the egg was able to be fertilized and I was born. So my parents were very smart and they made the decision to tell me that I was a donor-conceived child from the start of my life. It was never a thing for me. I never felt weird about it. I was never resentful. It didn't change the way I saw my dad. My dad was my dad, and that was it. There was no question to it. And I never thought of the sperm donor as someone that would be like a father figure. It's just someone who, gave me some DNA. And what's crazy is I was talking to my mom this week and she told me that she was in a support group for mothers who were using sperm donors. And she said that all of the members in that group were lying to their kids and their immediate family about using a sperm donor. And that's just how the culture was back then in the 80s and 90s. But she decided to be rebellious and she decided to tell me from a young age. And at the time they were saying well, that could really mess up your relationship with the child and it could mess up the child's life. But my mom had seen the effect of adoption on her sister. And my grandparents told my aunt from a really young age that she was adopted and she was just as loved as if she were their biological child. And so my mom saw firsthand that empowering your child with knowledge really is the way to go to make sure that they're happy and they don't feel, betrayed and they can be informed and make all their own decisions. I am so grateful that my mom had that instinct because now so many people I know who are donor conceived only found out that they were a donor child after their father died, which is so heartbreaking and just so tragic. Talk to so many people who feel like their whole relationship with their dad was a lie. And God, that just sounds terrible. There's actually a really great article. I'll link it on the screen above. Kerry Washington, I think she was in the Washington Post. If you don't know her, she played famously Olivia Pope on Scandal. And she found out very recently that she's a donor conceived child. And now she wrote a book about it called Thicker Than Water, I think. So I'm really excited to read that. And I highly recommend you read that article because it talks about how as donor conceived children, we have significantly less rights. And so there's this whole movement about, no longer making sperm donation anonymous, making sure that we can have updated medical records and everything like that. I'm kind of digressing, but I just do feel like I gotta support the cause and let you know kind of what it's like behind the scenes. So it can be really, really difficult for a lot of us as donor conceived children to go about life, especially for me right now with all of my health problems. I really need a clear picture of my entire medical history. But obviously 50% of that history is missing, and that makes it really difficult for me to predict what's going on. There is a form that my sperm donor filled out when he was making his donation. And, it didn't really say that there were any health problems or anything like that. But when he donated, he was 23. So at that point, I'm sure he didn't have a full comprehensive medical health history to fill out. Also, for a lot of donor conceived kids, a lot of donors lie on their medical form because they want to be picked and they want to be an appealing candidate. And so they don't want to say things that could potentially deter someone from using their sperm sample. So I have heard cases where people have lied about really horrible genetic diseases and conditions. Again, I digress, but I do just want you to know what it's like to actually be a donor conceived child for a lot of people. There can be a lot of challenges, and I'm so lucky that I really haven't had to deal with any of them because my parents were so forthcoming for me, and also because I believe that EDS, which is genetic, came from my mom. I just started wanting that genetic information though from my biological father's side because I just started working with a genetic counselor on some health problems and, you know, testing to see if I have certain conditions. So that's what started this whole journey into trying to find out who the biological father is. But I'm first going to take it into a little bit of a story time. By the way, goddamn, this new Prequel lotion's so good. It's the Barrier Therapy Skin Protectant Cream. So good. It's like in between rich and lightweight, and it's just, it feels so nice on the skin. I feel so moisturized and hydrated, but it's not heavy. It's just so good. And it's only $18 for this massive 10-ounce size. Anyways, I said I wasn't gonna talk about the product, but this was just so good I had to. So let's rewind by 2 years. 2 years ago, 2021. I'm going about my life. I think that I'm an only child and that I'm the only person with shared DNA on this entire earth, you know, because I knew that my dad's side of the family wasn't my biological family, and I was related to my mom, but my mom's entire family is dead. Her sister, her parents, everybody. She has no aunts, uncles, cousins, or anything like that. So I thought, as of 2 years ago, that the only person I was related to on this entire earth was my mom, which was like really depressing. I just felt sad about that for some reason. I don't know why. I'd have to think about it a little bit more. But anyways, you know, I was really weirded out that I was only related to one person, and I just thought, well, one person that I knew of. Obviously, I knew there was a biological father, but for all I knew, he could be dead and maybe have no more family left either, just like my mom. And so I set out on a quest 2 years ago to find siblings. And first what I did was I signed up for a website called DonorSiblingRegistry.com, and you pay a membership and you can look up your donor ID. It's all totally anonymous, or at least my donor chose to be anonymous. You can choose to not be anonymous, and I think that's more common these days because of Ancestry.com and 23andMe and other platforms that have genetic information shared. And so I had always been looking for siblings, and I remembered, I think when I was like 18, I signed up for the website and put in my donor ID, and I didn't find a match, so I just kind of let it go and moved on with my life. But you know, in 2021, I thought, okay, well, I'm 31 at this point, and I might as well just give it a shot, see if anyone is a match now. And it turns out there was. I saw this post from one person with the same donor ID, and it said, hey, I would love to, you know, chat if you are a half sibling of mine. If we share the same donor, hit me up. Here's my contact information. And my world changed after seeing that post. I was just screaming and screaming and screaming and crying, and I was just overwhelmed to find out that not only did I have a half sister, but she had a twin brother, and so I had a brother, and I was like, what? It was the craziest thing that had ever happened to me up until that point. And I was just elated. I was so excited. And now I chat with that half sister all the time. She's super cool. The half brother has no interest in contact, but that's okay. I'm super stoked to have a relationship with my half sister. So I'm just gonna let my sunscreen set. It was the Paula's Choice Super Light Daily Wrinkle Defense. I don't like to go right in with foundation because it can kind of mess with the texture of your base. So I'm just gonna let my sunscreen sit a little bit as I'm talking here. And now let's fast forward a couple months. So I had found out that I had two half siblings, and my world was changed. Then I decided at that point, maybe 23andMe is a good option for me, and Ancestry.com. You know, A, so I can have some more information about my body and where I come from, and B, because so many people use those platforms now, maybe I'll find a match. Maybe I'll even find my biological father. So I did 23andMe, and right away I was matched with another half sister, and I was just like, what? Oh my God, there's 4 of us, like that's crazy. And it was wild because she was in the Bay Area and I was in the Bay Area, but I didn't know how she was gonna feel about it. So I sat on it for a couple days or weeks. I didn't immediately message her because I honestly wasn't sure if she was a donor conceived child or if she was the actual like raised daughter of my biological father. And I didn't want to like blow up her life if she hadn't been told that her father donated sperm. Turns out she's also a donor conceived child. So, you know, not much of a concern there. But what's crazy is she had listed her full name on 23andMe. So I was able to just do a little online stalking. I immediately saw what she looked like and I was like, okay, cool. I think about a week later, I'm out to dinner celebrating with John and our friends, and we're at a restaurant. This restaurant has the main section where you're eating, and then it has a back bar that's just this like premium whiskey bar. So the 4 of us go into this whiskey bar, and who is sitting at the seat directly next to me but my half-sister, the one that I had just matched with in the Bay Area. And I started hyperventilating. I was freaking out. I was just like, oh my God, she knows, she might not know that I'm her half-sister. I know that she's my half-sister. Oh my God, we're related. What do I do? Holy shit, I'm freaking out. So I just like pull up a picture of her and I like turn it to John and our friends and they're all like, oh my God. And I can't keep my cool. So I go outside. I gotta start doing my makeup. This is too much. So I go outside and I have a full-blown panic. Oh, am I running out of my Armani foundation? I have a full-blown panic attack. I'm talking hysterics, like hysterical tears. I am literally on the ground on a sidewalk in San Francisco. I'm hiding behind a bush so nobody can see me. And I am just like inconsolable because I don't know what to do. And I'm like, should I say something? Should I not say something? I'm freaking out. I'm hyperventilating. I don't know what to do. Should I go back in the restaurant? Should I tell everybody we gotta go? I eventually collect myself and I decide, all right, I should probably zoom you in. I decide, okay, I'm gonna keep my cool and I am going to just pretend that I don't know who she is. And then when I get home, I can message her on 23andMe and then we can go from there. So I went home that night and I messaged her and said, hey, this is super weird, but we matched as half sisters. And I just wanted to let you know, like, I think I saw you at the restaurant. And so I messaged her and said, hey, here's my Instagram if you ever want to chat or hang out or whatever, like, you know, happy to talk further. And I was super bummed because I never heard back. So I was like, okay, maybe she doesn't check 23andMe or maybe, you know, maybe it's a rejection. Maybe she just doesn't want a relationship and it is what it is. So I let it go. Oops, I forgot my concealer. So I carry on living my life, right? Fast forward to April 2022. I'm at Coachella. I'm walking on the like biggest part of the field in GA. And who walks by me but this like tall blonde goddess of a figure wearing this like neon green outfit, and I immediately knew that was her again. And I was just like, what the fuck is happening? Like, this is the second time I've seen my half-sister in person and she doesn't know that I exist or she doesn't know that I'm her half-sister. Oh my God, I'm gonna explode if I keep this to myself. So I was just freaking out over the fact that the coincidence of running into someone twice when neither of us live in the Coachella area, and B, I was in Berkeley, and so when I saw her that night in San Francisco, it was just, the coincidence was just absolutely bizarre. And sure enough, I went to her Instagram the next day and she had posted her outfit and it was her. So then I decided to message her and I was just like, hey, I messaged you on 23andMe and I didn't hear back, so I hope this isn't weird. I hope I'm not, you know, blowing up your life in any way, but I have seen you twice in person and I know that we're related and it's too weird to know that I'm seeing you and it's too weird. So I messaged her and it was awesome. She messaged me back and she was like, this is so cool. How awesome. And she was really nice. And, you know, we said that we would want to meet up at some point. So I'm definitely going to meet up with both my half sisters this year, which is really exciting. I'm friendly and chat with both of them. So at that point, I have 3 half siblings that I'm aware of. And I'm just super excited and, you know, just am pretty positive there's got to be more if there's already a couple of us. So then fast forward a few months later, I'm matched with somebody else on 23andMe and looks like we have another half brother who lives in New York. So now there's 5 of us total and I'm just giddy as hell because I'm an only child. I always wanted siblings, and even though I knew in my head siblings would probably never turn out the way that I would want them to in a perfect world, I was just so excited to have people I was related to, you know, have donor siblings that could relate to the unique challenges of being a donor conceived child. And it's been really cool. So fast forward to present day and, you know, my geneticist is saying that they'd really love for me to try to find medical records for my family. So I thought, okay, you know what? I'm just gonna try again on 23andMe. Let's see if anyone comes up in my extended family on 23andMe on my biological father's side, and we'll see if maybe that will lead me to figuring out who he is after all this time. The answer was right there in front of me for like a year. So I had made the mistake of thinking that my half sister, who I kept running into, was like the raised daughter of the sperm donor because my other half sister said that that's what it was. So I had never wanted to ask the half sister who I'd ran into at Coachella because I didn't want to pry. I didn't want to like ask, hey, can you send me medical records? You know, I just figured we would wait until we could meet up in person and then maybe I could finally find out who my biological father was. So I thought that the answer was right in front of me the whole time. I just kind of needed to develop the relationship with my half sister first before asking about her father and, you know, all of that. Well, this week with the geneticist, I was like, God, I have to just finally ask her. I have to get up the courage to ask her, you know, how are we related? Are you a donor kid? Or is your father the sperm donor? Like, just what's up? You know, what do you know? And I'll tell you what I know. So I reached out to her a couple days ago and she said like, oh my God, I had been wanting to ask you the same thing for so long. And everyone in my life told me not to ask you. And I told her, I was like, everybody in my life told me not to ask you. So we had this nice moment where we both were like super relieved to finally have transparency this week after 2 years almost of, not 2 years, like a year and a half of talking with each other, but being too scared to ask each other like if we were both donor kids. So super relieved that she is a donor kid and she was like totally open to having that conversation. And it turns out she was not told that she was a donor kid until the week that I messaged her on 23andMe. And sadly, her father who raised her had passed years ago and never told her. So she said that it was just super eerie. Her mom had told her and then she got my message and we were both just remarking on how like there was just a lot of weird universe coming together kind of feeling. So that was very interesting. But that made me realize, oh shoot, so now I have to start all over looking for the donor because I thought it was going to be her dad. And I knew that her dad had passed away. And I had just thought like, oh, well, you know, he passed away, so I don't want to press. I don't want to ask her too many questions about it since it's such a painful subject. But now I know that the person who died is not my biological father. So I was thinking to myself this week, wow, I have to start from scratch again. Now there's a whole new puzzle piece to figure out. Who is the biological father? Which family is he on 23andMe? So I go back and I look through my 23andMe to see all of the people I've matched with. Turns out I'm related to a lot of people. There's like 5 pages of relatives, all on my father's side that I don't know. And it's just so crazy to hear that and say that after so many years of thinking I was only related to one person. It's so funny. And so I logged on to 23andMe a couple days ago and I saw that I had 2 first cousins on my biological father's side. And only one of them listed their full name. So I was able to then find that person online, easily found their father, pulled up the father's Facebook page, saw a comment from someone who was clearly their brother. Turns out there's only one brother, and then boom, he was right there. I had his Facebook page in front of me within 5 minutes of investigating on 23andMe, and he looks exactly like me, almost exactly like me. It is crazy. And I just immediately knew, before even looking at how old he was and his birthday and his interests and where he went to school, because you do have that information on your donor form, I just knew. I knew by the way he smiled. I knew by like his figure and everything. It just, when you know, you know. And I knew. And when I saw my half sister at Coachella and at the restaurant, I knew. I knew. And I was screaming bloody murder in the house. I got the zoomies. I was just like, like this is 33 years of wondering who my biological donor was. And it was right in front of me all along if I had just done a little extra research on 23andMe, and I just could not believe it. So I did a little more stalking and then found that he has 2 kids, which means he has 7 biological children total. I have 6 half siblings. What? I have 6 siblings. That's crazy. Like I was raised as an only child and now I have 6 half siblings. I mean, it is just bonkers. So it's been a pretty damn crazy week and I have been sitting on this information for a couple days now, and I'm gonna keep sitting on this information for a few weeks, you know, as long as it takes to figure out what I want to do with it, because, you know, if I want to reach out to get medical records, it would have to be very, very carefully worded. You know, I would have to make it very clear to the man that I'm not interested, or not that I'm not interested, that I'm not pursuing a relationship per se, that, you know, I would never want to impact his life, that I appreciate the gift that he gave me, you know, and if he's willing to provide some medical records for us, I'll share them with the rest of the group and and that would be very much appreciated. So I could go about it that way, and I'm not going to share, any information beyond that or what I might say, because people here can be very, very judgmental over things that they don't know about. So I'm going to sit on it for a while and just kind of let the excitement die down a bit. Okay, I just dyed my hair a darker, warmer color, and my eyebrow pencil is way too cool tone, so please ignore that. I need to find like a reddish brown eyebrow pencil. If you have any recommendations, please hit me up, because I'm not used to having to color my eyebrows like this. So I want to let the excitement die down a little bit, and at first, I was just thrilled. I was so excited. I was getting all these images flashing in my head of, us meeting up for the first time, and I don't know, like all of the siblings meeting up and having this happy, huge extended family like I've always wanted, and your brain goes to the exciting place first, and you're on that high and you're so stoked. But then, as I was thinking about it more, I realized that there could be a rejection, and he could be really freaked out when he sees my email. Although he'd have to be kind of an idiot not to think this is coming with the invention of 23andMe and Ancestry.com. Like, every single person who's donated sperm has to know that their offspring can find them now, if anyone in their family is on those platforms. So hopefully it wouldn't be that much of a shock, but still, it would be a shock to him if he got my email. Like, no doubt about it. It would impact his life. So I have to be very, very careful about how I want to go about it, and I don't want any opinions. I don't want suggestions. I don't need people to tell me what they think I should do. This is something that's really, really personal, and I don't want any input. So thank you in advance. Oh God, these brows are tragic. They're like so cool toned compared to my hair. Oh no. And this one has a gap. Why is there always one brow that just looks like shit? So I've been talking to my therapist about it and my two half sisters, and we agreed that it's appropriate for me to reach out, but I just have to do it in a way that's very careful and doesn't put any pressure on him whatsoever, and is just more like, hey, hello, we exist. Just wanted you to know, if you can provide medical records, that's great. If not, no worries, have a nice life. That's probably the approach that I'll take. But, as I was talking to people, the reality was setting in more and more that I may not get the response I want. And, that would be really devastating. And people have been telling me, don't get your hopes up. And while that's all nice in theory, we're talking about biology here. Like, there is no way to not be disappointed if you reach out to your biological relative who you've been kind of searching for your whole life, and then they reject you. Like, there is no way to fully prepare yourself for that feeling. There's no way to not be affected by that feeling. So thus, I am preparing for that rejection. It's very possible that's what's gonna happen. I would say it's more likely that he'll reject me than likely that he would be interested in a relationship, because he has 2 kids of his own, and he probably didn't tell them. So, it's a complicated situation. But here's the thing. It all comes down to the fact that I could not go the rest of my life knowing that I know who he is without reaching out. I can't just let him live the rest of his life and die without knowing that we exist. Because of that what if. I mean, what if he were never to get that email from me, and then he passes away, and I find out from his, kids later down the line that he would have loved for me to reach out. It's just, I can't think too much about his feelings, because he did make the choice to donate sperm. He knew what he was getting into, aside from where technology would go, but he knew that it would result in offspring, and I can't be too protective of his feelings. I also have to do, what's best for me, which is getting medical history. So I've spoken with my half sisters. I don't have any relationship with either of my half brothers. I messaged the one in New York on 23andMe, but he never responded and never accepted my friend request. So he either hasn't seen that, because, a lot of people don't log on to 23andMe multiple times a year, or he saw it and is not interested. And that doesn't bother me, strangely. I thought I would feel rejected by my half brothers not wanting a relationship, but I totally understand it. The 3 out of 4 of the half siblings that I have, I know did not find out that they were donor kids until much later on in life, after their fathers had passed. Unfortunately, both of my half sisters and one of my half brothers, their fathers died when they were young. So that's really terrible. And all of us donor kids have a very, very different experience with being a donor child. Some of us don't even know that we're a donor child. So luckily, I'm not rejected by my half brothers. I'm actually really proud of myself that that doesn't feel like a rejection. And maybe I'll meet them one day, but if not, that's okay. It is what it is. But I think the rejection of the donor would be very, very painful for me, because it's like, you do have those biological instincts things kick in that make you feel rejected by a parent, even though that's not what's actually happening. You can't really help your brain in processing that. So I did speak with my half-sisters about the approach. I felt like it was only fair to make sure that they were included in the messaging, because obviously, like, sometimes we only get one shot to make a first impression. We only get one shot sometimes to even have communication. And so I just felt like my half-siblings had a right to weigh in how they think I should approach the email and everything like that, and we're all aligned on the approach, which is great. What's super cool is actually one of my half-sisters, the first one that I found, donated her eggs to pay it forward, and she made the process not anonymous so that if she were to find one of her donor kids, she would be able to have contact with them and they would be able to find her. And I think that is such an incredibly selfless, wonderful, admirable thing to do. So that is the story of how I found out I have 6 half-siblings and a biological father that lives very close to me. Something else that's super crazy about the story is I was able to match the records of where he went to school and what he was studying with his Facebook page. But not just that, I matched his interests as well. And one of the things that was always so fascinating to me growing up was that on his form it said he was a musician and he loves music, he sings and plays guitar. Neither of my parents who raised me are musically inclined whatsoever. And I always had held on to that. I think that one interest is what gave me a little bit of curiosity about meeting him one day, because music is the deepest part of my soul and the most important thing in my life. And that is something I got from him, and I've always wanted to kind of, I don't know, like thank him for that, or just see like what we have in common, if we have music in common, like certain artists that we listen to. And I've just always known that that came from him, and it's always fascinated me. And when I was doing a little online stalking and typed his name into Google, I found that he still is in the medical field and, you know, still practices, but I found out that he also performs at a restaurant with what appears to be his daughter in the Bay Area. And here's what's even crazier. I went to a doctor's appointment last week in his town, which is not a place that I ever go to, ever. And I was in his town where he lives and works and performs. It's just, the universe is doing some weird, funky things, and I just can't ignore it, you know? I just can't. Like, I am from Connecticut, and yet I am so close to the person who shares my DNA. I mean, that is absolutely wild. Wild to know that he was just like right down the road. And honestly, I will say, after looking him up online, you know, he posts videos of him playing guitar and singing and all the new songs he's writing. And I just think that's so cool, because his actual job is in the medical field, and yet he's so deeply committed to music as a passion. And I just was thinking to myself, like, my God, that's me. I don't have a full-time job in music, but, you know, I'm learning guitar. I studied musical theater at NYU. I sing. I love going to concerts and festivals. Same with obviously my half-sister who I saw at Coachella. Like, we're big music people, big concert people. And it's just been wild to know that. And also the funny thing is, my half-sister, the first one that I found out about, is in the medical field. And it's like, wow, there's so much of us that is nature and so much of us that is nurture. And it is just fascinating to compare the two and see what traits I picked up from my dad who raised me versus what characteristics came out of me biologically. And it's just absolutely fascinating. I just think it's one of the coolest things ever. And I'm really, really lucky, because it doesn't bother me being a donor conceived child at all. But there are so many people and so many donor conceived children, like Instagram pages and Facebook groups, that are very upset about the lack of rights that we have to knowing information about our bodies. I think this pretty similar thing with adoption as well. And so there's a big movement to change the industry around donating sperm and eggs. And I think that's great, and I totally support it. But I didn't realize how lucky I was to have this mentality of really not giving a shit about my biology and like who I share DNA with, when so many people are really angry that they're donor conceived children. And whether they had heard about it from the start or not, you know, there are a lot of people who really, really, really despise the industry and want to change it. And I'm going to read a little bit more about it. I'm definitely going to read Kerry Washington's book, but I think that would have made my life significantly more difficult involved if I had struggled with that, coming to terms with that reality. So here I am, casually sitting on all this life-changing information I've been looking for 33 years and trying to think about anything other than this subject, but it is completely impossible. Every single person I run into, every person I have a meeting with, I just keep wanting to blurt out like, I found my biological father! Like, there's nothing else I can think about. It's crazy. Oh no, I tried to do too many coats of tubing mascara and now it's just getting super clumpy and all over the place. What is happening? My lashes never do this. Okay, I'm gonna try this little lip product L'Oreal just sent me in the mail. I haven't researched what it is yet, so don't know what it's about. Very gray nude. I don't think I want that. Hold on. Ooh, that's nice. A vanilla smell. Vanilla floral. Smells like vanilla, tastes a little like flowers, which means they're using parfum as an ingredient. Typically, fragrance that tastes like flowers but smells like something else is parfum instead of like natural flavors or aroma or something like that. It is drying down. Okay, so it's like a classic liquid lipstick. Interesting choice, L'Oreal. Feels nice. And that's the story of how I found my biological father and 6 half siblings. So I hope you enjoyed this story time. It was really fun to film and hope you're having a great day. I'll see you in the next one.